Hi everyone, my name is Kurt Brown, and I am a technology librarian at the Charleston County Public Library. In this video, we're going to be learning a little bit more about JavaScript. This is the 7th of 8 web development videos. And in the last video, we learned what JavaScript is, and we also learned what a programming language is. We learned how to create a variable, we learned about the rules of JavaScript, and we learned about some operations and how to create comments. In this video, it's going to be a little bit of a step up from our last video. We're going to be learning about control flow, and we're going to be learning about the different types of errors you may come across, and then finally, we're going to be learning about objects. Okay, so it's time to exit the slideshow and hop on over into our trusty repl.it website. Okay, so come on over here, just click on Start Coding. I'm going to scroll down to HTML, CSS, JS. We'll click on Create. Okay, so we right now are in our index.html file. Okay, in our body, you can see we have our JavaScript set up and ready to go. Okay, but we won't be working in our index.html file. Again, we also will not be working in our style.css file. We're going to be working in our script.js file. Okay, this is called a console. Okay, and this is where we were looking at our HTML and CSS come to life. We won't be needing this part today, so let's go ahead and get rid of it. Okay, so we are going to be using our console for JavaScript. Okay. All right, so now we're all set up and ready to get started. Okay, so first we're going to start with control flow. And control flow is the order in which the computer executes statements in a script. Okay, so we'll control the flow of our programs, most frequently using conditionals. All right, and so first we're going to start with an if statement. Okay, and an if statement is used to specify a block of JavaScript code to be executed if a condition is true. Okay, so before we make an if statement, first I'm going to create a variable. Okay, so var. I'm going to call it number. Okay, let's give it a value of 100. Okay, and don't forget the semicolon. Okay, now we can start our if statement. So if, and we need a condition. Okay, so if what? So let's say what if our number is greater than 0. Okay, so greater, all right, or we can do less than. Okay, we can do less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. But in this case, let's just use if number is greater than 0. Okay, so if number is greater than 0, what are we going to do? Okay, we'll also need some curly braces. All right, so we have some curly braces here. And I want to print to the console. Okay, to do that, we're going to use console.log and then parentheses. All right, and what are we going to be logging to the console? Well, if our number is greater than 0, we want to say our number is positive. Okay, and don't forget, semicolon. And if you need to, feel free to have a space in between. All right, so this is how you set up an if statement. Okay, so if, and then your condition. All right, so if your number is greater than 0, curly braces, what are we going to do? Okay, so I want to do a console.log. I want to log to the console. Okay, your number is positive. Okay, and I have console.log, and then you need your parentheses. Okay, and now, since it's going to check our code, all right, and since our number is greater than 0, we should see in a console the number is positive. So let's go ahead and click run and let's see what happens. And there you go. So number is positive. Okay. All right. So this is how you do an if statement. If your condition, and then the block of code to be executed if your condition is true. Okay. Well, what if our condition is false? Okay. So if our condition is false, we'll need to add an else statement. Okay, so we use an else statement to specify a block of code to be executed if the condition is false. Okay, so we have our if statement. This is if it's true, right? Number is positive. What if it's false, right? What if it's negative? Okay, so we'll start with an else. Okay, and now curly braces. Okay, so if it's false, what do we want to do? I want to print to the console, so console.log, parentheses. And what do we want to say? Well, we want to say number is negative. Okay, and don't forget semicolon. Okay, so if I click run now, what happens? I haven't changed the number yet. Okay, so the code jumps down here. All right, so number is greater than 0, 100 is greater than 0, so our number is positive. So we don't go into the else statement because we don't need to go there. All right, now, what if I change the number to a negative 100? Okay, and let's click run. All right, so as you can see, number is negative. But let's talk about the code. All right, so we tried this condition first. Is number greater than 0? Okay, negative 100 is not greater than 0. Okay, so now that's not true. This statement is false. So we'll have to jump down here to our else statement. All right, since our condition is false, we are logging to the console. The number is negative. Okay, so remember, the code goes from the top on down. All right, so this was not true, so we jump down to our else statement. Okay, so the number is negative. All right, and there's one more conditional we need to learn, and that's called the else if statement. All right, and the else if statement is used to specify a new condition if the first condition is false. Okay, so here we have what happens if our statement is true. Okay, so if it's true, we log to the console. Our number is positive. All right, but now I can add, I'm going to give a space, and else if, okay, and then curly braces, and else if, so what if our first condition is false, but our second condition is true? Okay, so our first condition is false, and our second condition is true. Okay, so what I want to do now, so else if, so we need a condition, so else if what? What if our number, so if our number is less than 0, okay, if our number is less than 0, what do we want to do? Okay, so I'm going to log to the console, okay, parentheses, number is negative, okay, and then if that's not true, we'll jump down here to our else statement. Well, if a number is not positive and it's not negative, well, then it has to be 0, right? Remember, 0 is neither positive or negative, okay? So here we are, and I'm going to just make this look a little bit better. All right, so now, here we go. So we have our if statement. If the number is greater than 0, console.log, your number is positive. All right, else if, okay, so if this is false and this is true, we'll say the number is negative. And if neither of these are true, then we'll jump down to our else statement, okay, saying the number is 0. All right, so now let's go test this. Okay, so I want to start with a positive number, so 100. Okay, so now as you can see, again, 100 is greater than 0. Okay, so number is positive. There's no need to jump to to test these other two, right? All right, now, what if it's negative 100? Okay, so if it's negative 100, all right, so negative 100 is less than 0, all right? So we'll skip this, or we'll not skip it, but it's not true, so we'll jump down to our else if the number is negative. Okay, so let's click run. All right. Now, what if we change our number to 0? Okay, so 0 is not greater than 0. Okay, 0 is not less than 0. So we'll jump down to the else statement, number is 0. Okay, so as you can see, number is 0. Okay, and that is control flow. Okay, so we set up some statements. Okay, and we have testing if it's true or false. Okay, so if it's true or false, what do we want to print to the console? Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to move on to errors. So I'm actually going to get rid of all of this now. Okay, I'm going to get rid of it. So now let's talk about errors. Okay, so there are a couple of errors that you can run into. All right. All right, and then one of them is called the syntax error. Okay, and the syntax error is caused when your code is written wrong. Okay, so for example, what if I want to print to the console and I just want to go ahead and clear this? Okay, so console.log. Okay, so now I want to type in hello world. However, I'm going to get rid of one of the parentheses. Excuse me, one of the quotation marks. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so console.log hello world. Okay, I got rid of one of our quotation marks. And let's click run. Okay, so now it says syntax error. Okay, so syntax error, invalid or unexpected token. Okay, so a syntax error again is caused when your code is written wrong. All right, and it says here in line 3, okay, there's something wrong there. Unfortunately, it won't tell us exactly what's wrong, so I'll have to do a little investigating. So let's come over here, and again, as you can see, we forgot our quotation marks. Okay, so now we should be good to go. Okay, so let's click run. Okay, all right, so hello world, so we're good. All right, and the next type of error, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, and the next type of error is a reference error. Okay, so this, we get a reference error when a value is used in code that doesn't exist. Okay, so let's talk about an example. So let's say I create a variable and I call it first name equals, let's call it Mickey, M-I-C-K-E-Y. Okay, so var first name equals Mickey. Okay, and let's say I want to console.log the last name. Okay, so console.log the last name. Okay, let's click run and let's see what happens. Okay, so we got a reference error. Last name is not defined. Okay, we don't have a variable called last name. Okay, so that's why we got a reference error. Okay, there's a couple of ways that we can fix this. Okay, one way is to just remove last and change it to first, click run. Okay, and we get Mickey. Or another thing you can do is create another variable called last name. Okay, let's call him mouse. Okay, and now I want to console.log the last name. Okay, and let's click run. Okay. What's going on? Okay. So our code's being a little slow right now. Let's refresh. Okay. So let's click run. I'm going to change this to last name. Okay. Okay, Okay, so as you can see, mouse. All right. All right, so that's a reference error. Okay, so a value used in code that doesn't exist. Okay, and we fixed it by adding a new variable. Again, we console.log that variable. Okay. All right. And the last type of error I want to talk about is a type error. Okay. And a type error lets us know we're trying to do something on the wrong type of value. Okay, we're doing something wrong on the wrong type of value. All right. So for example, let's create a variable. Okay. Let's call it favorite fruit. Okay, and we'll assign it apple. Okay. Now, if I want to use a function called favorite fruit, and I wouldn't worry about this right now. We'll actually learn about functions in our next video, but I just want to show you an example of a type error. Okay, so let's click run. Okay, so type error, favorite fruit is not a function. Okay, so this is not a function. Okay, but that is a type error. And again, we'll learn about functions in our next video. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about that right now. Okay, but I just wanted to show you the different types of errors you can come across. Okay, so let's get rid of all of this. All right. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was objects. Okay. All right. So objects lets us represent complex data with less effort. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a couple of variables. Okay, so variable cat name, okay, equals, let's call it mittens. Okay, now I'm going to create another variable called cat age. Okay, that's 6 years old. And another variable called cat color. And let's make them orange. Okay, so I can keep typing several different things about this cat, right? But look at the code so far. What if we would have multiple cats, right? What if I wanted to add information about another cat? All right. So JavaScript has a type known as an object that allows us to store nested data of any type as well as repeatable actions, which are known as methods. Okay. So objects are variables that can contain many values. Okay, you define and create an object in one statement. All right. So let me show you how to create an object. All right, so first, what we'll need to do, variable, okay, we're going to call this variable cat. Okay, so variable cat equals, and we're going to need curly braces. Okay, now inside the curly braces, we're going to name our properties. Okay, so let's talk about this cat. Name, and again, call him mittens. Okay, now when we are creating an object, okay, we don't need a semicolon here, all right, unless we are done. But for now, we're not done yet, so we'll use a comma. All right, so now what about the age? Okay, 6. Okay, we're not quite done yet, so comma. All right, and then color, and again, oh, there's something I forgot. We're actually going to be using colons for objects. All right. So the values are written as name, colon, value pairs. So this is the correct way to set up an object. Okay, so you have your property and then a colon and then your value. All right. All right. So color, orange. Okay. Now that we're done, we're going to have a semicolon at the end of the curly brace. Okay. Now this looks easier Well, it's complicated than creating 1, 2, 3 variables, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this here. Okay. So now, let's say I want to access the properties inside our cat object. All right. So I'm going to console.log. Now, what we're going to need is your object name. Okay, so cat, and then a dot. Okay, so your object name cat dot, and then what property do you want to access? Okay, so name. Okay, and then semicolon. Okay, so console.log. So we're accessing our properties. Okay, so I named my object cat. Okay, so cat dot, and then what property do you want to access? I want to access the name. Okay, so if I click run, as you can see, we get mittens. Okay, and now I can do the same thing. If I want to access the age, go to console.log, and then age, object, and then your property, semicolon, run again. Okay, so 6, and then one more. All right, and then cat dot object name dot your property. Okay, and then run. Okay, so orange. So this is how you create an object. Okay, you have your variable. All right, so var, and I'm calling it cat. Okay, so equals, and then we'll have curly braces. Inside the curly braces are your properties. Okay, so what about this cat? So the name, and so you're going to have the name of your property and a colon, all right, and then your value. Okay, so name, colon, mittens, age, colon, 6, and then we used a comma, okay, and then comma here, and then our color, colon, orange. When you're done with your object, okay, you want a semicolon at the end of your second curly brace here, okay, or your closing curly brace. All right, and then we went ahead and accessed the properties. Okay, so console.log, okay, our object, all right, dot, your property. Okay, and then we click run, and we have mitten, 6, and orange. All right, so that is objects, and that is the end of this video. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.